Hello and welcome back to The Hard Way. My name's Josh, and behind me is the next piece of our puzzle for the Cabover semi-project. This is an Eaton-Fuller 12513 transmission. It's an RTO model, and it has too much play in the output shaft bearings. So we need to do a rebuild on that. I think on some transmissions it's fairly easy to just replace the bearings here. But on this particular model, you have to do quite a bit of work. Let me show you. So to service and rebuild the bearings that are in here, you first need to pull apart this whole auxiliary section of the transmission. This is what, I'm not great on transmissions. I think this is what makes it a 13 speed instead of a 9. Is your shifting magic happens in here, and yeah. It gives you, basically, it splits some gears up, so you have more gears available to you to choose from. But, like I said, we have to split it right at this casting right here. Pull this off, because there's a couple, I think there's a race for one of the bearings that is pressed on. So we need to press it off the other way, so unfortunately it means we have to pull everything apart. But it gives me a good chance to rebuild this. I was able to get a parts kit for around $600. To rebuild this chunk of the transmission. You can get the front for another $500, or you can get, like, I think the whole, basically to rebuild this whole transmission for like $1,200. So yeah, so let's get started here. First step is going to remove these air lines that go wrap around the transmission to the front. It doesn't help to label your lines if you do the wrong ones. We're just going to go right over top of that. Okay, the next step is to remove this bracket that holds this air assembly here and this one up here. Okay, next step is to unhook this air line that wraps around to the back side of this. That's a lot easier now. I don't know why they had it tucked in like that. So I've already drained this transmission of oil, and the oil looked great. No metal flakes, no water. Yeah, it looked about as good as it can get. And there's no metal on the magnet on the dipstick either, or on the drain plug. Okay, the first step here is to remove the range shift cylinder cover and remove the nut from the end of the yoke bar. So that's right here. I'm going to pull these 4 bolts. And I think there will be a nut in between, or in the inside of that. Well, that was easy. So I think there's some gasket sealer on here because this is a diaphragm for air to push on. Pretty sure. But yeah, that came off real easily. So that had some blue Loctite on it, so I'll make sure to put some on there too. Okay, I have both covers off now. There's a snap ring on each one of these shafts that need to come off, but I'm going to wait until I have the auxiliary housing off the transmission. I don't want stuff falling out before it has to. So here's those covers. I scraped the gaskets off. The kit that I'm getting has new gaskets. So, yep. I'm getting close to as far as I can get tonight. I'm going to put all my bolts back in the holes just so I have them somewhere. And then, yeah, get cleaned up again. Okay, we got the yoke off and this rear bearing housing off. When I got that done, it took us quite a bit of heating and then a big impact to get that off. The actual nut on here was a lock nut, so we had to use an oxyacetylene torch and melt the nylon off and get the nut glowing red before it would actually come off with the 3/4 inch impact. So it's on there good and tight. Next step is to pull this auxiliary housing off and get it in a spot where we can work on it and start pulling it apart. So here we go. I went through with the breaker bar and loosened all these bolts before I did this so that I could use just a ratchet. So it looks like the one right next to these pins, there's two of them, and one has a short bolt, one has a long bolt. So need to remember that for reassembly. I'm sure that's the same here. That one's long. Okay, let's see if we can get this off. Okay, this pin here was giving me a lot of grief. Yeah, I think it's pressed in place, so there's no way to really get it out besides heating it up and trying to be gentle, because if you break this casting, it's garbage. So yeah, I used a couple putty knives to slowly trim it up carefully. So I think I got it now. Whew, that's heavy. There we go. That's a chunk of metal.